Good afternoon, good morning. I guess good morning for most of our listeners. There is Angie already. She's so rapid. Again, apologies for any noise in the background. Angie, are you there? Over. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. One
How are?
second, let me get. I'm very
All
well,
right.
thank you. Let me get the legals out the way. Nothing discussed on this Spaces session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, Traders PIQ or PIQ Suite, or indeed its affiliates and the hosts, which, as you know by now, is the amazing Angie and the slightly less amazing me, Ryan. Again, apologies for any background noise. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. I hope you're ready to party or not. It could go either way today.
Well, very
Um,
much so.
we still don't know. The jury's out. So, just looking at the points today, I felt like it took me a lot to like get my 3 points put together. But then once I started rolling, it wasn't hard at all. Today's big question, obviously, is going to be: do we break out above, what has been recent resistance? We've got a psychological resistance here in the January soybean board. We've hit 9.99 a few times here. It feels like probably two or three, but still and just kind of as quickly fell apart, dropped down, hit support, bounced back up again. I mean, I feel like we've done this two or three different times this week already. So do we break out above this $10 mark and push our way up towards, what was the old resistance levels that we've seen? We're going to need support, obviously, from something in the soybean oil realm or biofuel realm or whatever. And I am hearing rumblings that we may not end up as disappointed as we thought we were going to be when it comes to some of this 45Z guidance and some of these other things. So we're watching that closely and watching whether or not we can get that last little oomph into the end of the week and push out above, what has been these resistance levels here. Second point there, and don't mind my dogs, they're losing their mind over the Amazon guy. One second. All right, so back to we got export demand, and we saw yesterday's sales come in better than expected on the corn side of things. Absolutely, kind of continuing to see this really strong buying pace, and everyone wants to debate whether or not we're trying to front load our exports because of the worries over, what we've got going on with trade and some of these other things. But we are seeing, what has been a pretty phenomenal start. The corn book right now, the corn program is one of the best that we've seen since 2020, 2021. Biggest change, obviously, is that we just don't have China in and buying in a big way, or at least obviously buying in a big way. On the corn side, much of the gain that we've seen year over year in export demand has been to unknown, or, unknown has been the one that's in buying the most. And a lot of folks are like, why do we even allow unknown to come in and make these purchases? The USDA has said it's easier or better to have all of the information, or at least have the sales on the books or have the sales announced, even if we don't know where they're going. Yesterday, we saw some switch over from unknown into like Japan and I think South Korea. So we're still waiting to see if it's China, if it's the EU, who that is. On the bean side of things, China is coming in and continuing to buy from the US in a pretty good way. We are seeing them, basically the talk is that Sino Grain will continue to buy US soybeans out into April, simply because they're better to store. They have a different sort of quality setup than Brazilian beans. And so you can put them into reserves and have them sit there for a couple years. And so that's one of the things that we've seen, is that China's government is taking advantage of these lower prices. A couple reasons why: obviously low prices, help to spur demand, or at the very least, it makes sense to buy as much as you can when things are cheap. But they also need to figure out ways to battle their deflationary pressure that they're having, and basically have the government take some of these excess
Well,
supplies up.
and also, as we did, I think it was yesterday we floated this on. It plays into sucking up to Trump, right? If
Yes, very
it's not a
much.
bad thing.
Yeah. And I think that's what you're going to potentially see a continuation of here, is some buying interest from our friends. Now, I'm waiting to see if we have any sort of buying interest show up on the corn side. One of the things that we're really hearing kind of consistently about China's corn right now is that there's some real big quality concerns. Like, they came off wetter than what it normally would. They don't really have the drying and the all of the capacity to really kind of take a corn crop off and get it into good condition, before it's put away. And so there is some talk that we're seeing a spike in toxin levels and mold. And so that could lead to, potentially an increase in bringing in imported supplies, but nothing that we've seen yet. And right now, everyone says Jan through March is typically a seasonally slower period for China anyway when it comes to corn usage, the holidays and all these other things. And so that's really the big thing that we're watching now, is to see if China shows up for any corn and if they keep coming in for beans. And then last point, 5 minutes in, look at me, I'm getting so much better at this.
We are getting so good. Well, I'm not going to take any credit for it. I'm going to stop talking now.
You can take all the credit. Russian wheat. So we have questions over Russian wheat, right? We're hearing stories of the Russian wheat crops off to its worst start in decades, worst start on record, depending on who's telling you what. And so we're going to be watching that. One of the things I want to throw out there is that fall conditions have very limited, correlation to actual yield. I've seen it to where we've had some pretty poor looking fall crops that have surprised us come summer. But the problem is right now that we're hearing that really kind of, caught my attention is that it's an emergence issue. Like almost 40% of what was planted, which was already reduced year over year anyway, almost 40% of that has not emerged. Now, you can, like we have had it before where wheat just kind of breaks its way up and you barely see it and it still produces. But when you have a lack of emergence with a fall planted crop going into the winter, it really needs to have itself somewhat established. And so to see that really makes it difficult to see how that seed will make it through the wintertime and then emerge in the spring. It's really just not something that it does. And so it really raises the likelihood that we'll see an increase in abandonment and, potentially an even greater reduction in Russian production next year, which is already thought to be one of the lowest, production outlooks that we've had in a handful of years. And so that combined with the uncertainty over what's going to happen with Ukraine and Ukraine's ability to export, because we have no idea. It's really weird how quiet that situation has gotten here over the last week or so. Too, it feels. And so it's going to be one of those things that we watch, but that's going to be a slow burn. That's not something that anyone can really quantify as to what it means, but it will be something that should start to show up in their cash offers and, basically the availability of supply. What tends to happen is if you don't know what you're going to have to sell in a handful of months, you just stop selling for a minute until you feel better. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that impacts.
I do love an ongoing story.
Yes.
So this is something that we're obviously going to be talking about going forward into the spring, especially.
Yes, exactly. This will be something that we'll be watching for a while, and it could result in more changes from Russia as well. They're really fighting inflation and some of these other problems, and so in 21, it was before they invaded. We saw them, or it was 20 actually. I think when everything really started to get wonky, that was when we first saw Russia just basically come out. I'm going to say they ruined Christmas that year, and it wasn't really ruined is a relative term. But basically, they just started to really screw with what they were putting out into the world market and what they were kind of allowing, and even what they had contracted already. And so we've seen this story from Russia before, and it's not impossible that we don't see it again. But it'll be one of those things we'll be watching here for a while. It'll give me something, a bullet point, probably once a week on what the heck's going on in Russia.
Exactly. If you can't fill that third point, there we go.
Right, that's just it. We'll just get a Black Sea update. So super simple.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
Perfect.
that's it.
Well,
That's
look,
all we got for the day.
We are smashing these. But Angie, as always, thank you so much. Thank you for such a great week as usual. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in always, and also the ones that provide some great feedback to us. I wish everyone a splendid weekend. I'm going to go to the pub. Well, I'll tell a lie. I'm already in the pub. I'll see you all on Monday.
I knew it. I was going to say going to the pub, Ryan. Are we going?
Yeah, all right. I have a bit of, it's a Friday.
It is Friday.
It's gone lunchtime here.
That's just,
anyway, darling.
All right. You have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
See you later. Bye-bye.